Hi, my name is Bianca Lopez-Parnetti, and this is my presentation on Lab 1, Constant Velocity. So the purpose of this lab was to record the motion of an object moving at a constant velocity in a straight line, and then we created a computational code based off the recorded movement under the same conditions, and finally we compared the kinematics of the two systems, the observed and the predicted. So the two main physics principles used in this lab were kinematics and dynamic equilibrium. We used the momentum principle or Newton's second law, and also changes in velocity and displacement under kinematics. And then under equilibrium, we saw that there was no net force since all the force components balanced out, but the object was still moving at a constant motion. And so this led us to use two relevant equations. The net force is equal to mass times acceleration, which overall equaled 0, and then also changes in position based on the constant velocity. So as a preview, we can see that both systems mapped out linear correlation between the changes in position and time, but the observed system had some slight variance to it. So the two main parts of this experiment were the systems and surroundings. The system was the moving puck shown in the video, or in the picture here, and the surroundings was basically just everything else that was interacting with it. For example, my hand that pushed the puck forward, the table, and also just the atmosphere. So then this setup created the initial conditions for the experiment and later on the computational code. For example, the initial position, the initial velocity, or also the velocity was constant, so the final velocity too, I guess, the system mass, the time, and then the time step. And so then we actually created the observed model, which I recorded the video of the pushed puck moving in front of a meter stick. I uploaded it onto the tracker platform, and I tracked the puck as a point mass from one data point per frame. And finally, I created the data table of time and position and uploaded it onto Excel and graphed it. And this is what it looked like. And next, I created the computational model, which I got the code from my professor, and then I made it my own. So first, I had the code to visualize and graph the object's movement. I put in all the initial conditions of the system, as seen in the last video or picture. And finally, the coded calculations to solve for the changes in position based on the conditions specified above. And so this is what it looked like in the end. This showed the movement in the positive x-hat direction, and also two graphs mapping out the displacement and the velocity in respect to time. And then at the very end, it just showed the little coordinates. So these were the overall results, a position over time graph, and the pink line shows the computational system, and the blue line shows the observed system. And we can see the computational system is perfectly linear. It has an R value of 1, but the observed system does have some slight variance to it. It's not perfectly linear, but it's still really linear. But there is some error for it. So the similarities were that both of them displayed the relationship between time and position under the same conditions, and they both showed a significant linear correlation, with both R values being above 0.98 between the time and position. But the differences were that the computational system is perfectly linear, but the observed system did show some net force still acting on it. And the computational system did have some more frequent and consistent data points, while the observed system was tracked less due to poor video quality. And so the possible sources of error were human error incorrectly mapping each data point on the tracker platform, and also the fact that the tracker platform was used on a MacBook led to a lot of glitching and distortion of the video, which complicated the entire process. And also the assumption of perfect conditions, meaning no surface friction, no drag, etc. So for the last two additional questions, the first one asked what if, and it asked what would happen if we flipped the axis, for example, from the positive x direction to the negative x direction. And I said that this flipping would not have any effect on the magnitude itself of the data points, but it would flip the direction of the vector quantities, since they depend on both magnitude and direction. And the second one was what does it mean? And it asked if it was possible to say how many forces were being added together to give the overall zero net force. And I said that it was possible, and I broke it down into different axes. So for the x-axis, I said that the force of my human push on the puck was balanced out by the table friction and air drag, which created the dynamically equal system. For the y-axis, I said there was no movement along it because the gravitational force and the normal force were balancing each other out. And then for the z-axis, there is no movement along it, so there is no forces in that component. That is all. Thank you so much for listening.